what's going on, everybody? This is Toy Addict, and today we have a very um, special episode of Toy Addicts Anonymous. We have very special guest here with us today, and this is Mr. Robert. He's the owner, president, creator, CEO, what have you, of the latest toy extravaganza Kickstarter program. It's called Savage Crucible, and I'm joined by my buddy, the Badass Reviews, Carlos, and we're going to talk all Savage Crucible, get some, nice, good info. This Kickstarter is live and going strong, super strong. Only 1 day left, I believe. I think it ends tomorrow on Friday. So before, we waste any more time, let's talk Savage Crucible. So, Rob, thanks for joining us. I know you must be really busy running, the last minute behind the scenes stuff with this Kickstarter. It's been incredibly successful, and we're not surprised. Even when we saw the concept art originally, just the potential that this line has is amazing. So, first and foremost, I wanted to know what inspired Savage Crucible. What is this toy line, the storyline really based upon?
Well, it has a lot of influences. I think it starts with fantasy-based characters, D&D, Motu inspired, Conan, H.P. Lovecraft, Frazetta. A lot of the fantasy art from the 80s and 70s and 60s, even going back as far as the 30s. So those are all really big influences on me. I was a big Marvel comics kid growing up. And I'm also a big Diablo fan. I play a lot of PC games. So Diablo is another pretty big inspiration for me. So I say those are like the basis influences. In terms of why I started to do it, I just felt that there was a lot of different types of genres that weren't really getting explored in fantasy from character types. And so I didn't really see anything in the Lovecraft realm. To be honest, a lot of the barbarian stuff is really it touches on for like a minute, maybe because somebody's doing some kind of Conan property or whatnot, but they don't really dive into it. Lemurians or lizard men is another great example. Outside of like Kurt Connors with a Marvel character or whatnot, you don't really see a lot of lizard characters. And so going back to like D&D is so popular right now, and even Hasbro itself has not really come out with a lot of characters there, even though they've had the Wizards of the West Coast for 20 years now. They're just now finally getting to the property. So yeah, that was sort of the basis. Now in terms of the lore and things like that, there was a lot of influences. Stargate is part of it. I wanted a mechanic in the story that allowed me to bring in new characters and or different properties. And so I think what you see is there's a lot of properties out there that people are big fans of, but they can't really support a toy line on their own. And so thinking of it in terms of how can you bring in some of those properties and still mesh with yours and still be able to, tap into that fan base, but also create something that's a little bit new and a little bit different.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you said is true. We're all fanboys of different licenses, whatever we came up with when we were kids, or like things that we collect on our day to day, and you kind of see a lot of little nuances and homages and stuff in a lot of these characters. I see Motu. I definitely see Conan inspiration, but I'm wondering, like, as far as you have like an intro video that kind of shows, it's like a little sizzle reel of Savage Crucible, and it kind of shows like these portals opening up. Is that like the concept, in the sense of like, is it that these portals are opening up to different realms, and that's what kind of opens up the possibilities of having Frazetta universe, having werewolves, having demons, having all these types of creatures? Is that kind of like the main concept?
It is one of the main concepts. It's you don't know why the portals open, and maybe some people can actually force them to open, and maybe sometimes at this point they're just sort of random. And so if you read the graphic novel, they kind of hint about Lemurians and certain types actually having an ability to sense when a portal's about to open, and so they utilize that to actually herd humans for food purposes and for cheap slave labor. And so, but this is a very old world, so if you think about it, there's the possibility that there might be other structures that you can force a gate to open. And yes, the concept is that it can open up in different universes or different time frames. And so literally, if you think about it, you could have, say, humans from 4000 BC coming in at the same time someone like from 1800s. So the possibility that you can bring in other characters from different time periods is sort of somewhat unique. And if you do it the right way, it won't be very campy or whatnot. So like sometimes some of the things that we explore or talk about internally is, well, if someone showed up with a cowboy showed up with a six-slinger, what could he do with a 6-shot pistol after he's run through all his bullets? Well, I guess you tape it to the end of a club and use it to beat people with you. I don't know. So it's just an interesting concept from that standpoint.
Awesome. So pretty much Savage Crucible, and that's why I was talking to Jorge and some of my friends about it. Like they were asking me, because a lot of people don't know about the story, don't know about the actual graphic novel. I have the graphic novel, and I also, everybody saw the video, and I mean, I talked to you back in 2022 in PowerCon. And what I like about the concept of the Savage Crucible is, like, to me at least, it's pretty much like a kind of like a universe like that, like is separate from other universe or other like dimensions, and they bring like all these characters from different worlds and stuff like that, and like they get into kind of like this very, I don't know if it's similar or you got inspiration on that, but it's really funny because I was reading, like back in the days, I was reading I don't know if you remember when Dr. Doom was like the Secret Wars or something like that, I think, War of War or something like that. And it's interesting because like you have all these characters, like the Lemurians, you have like all the lizards, you have the Pyranoids, you have all these guys. And my question always was like, damn, who's bringing those guys to this universe? What's the purpose? And it's really interesting because at the end of the graphic novel, it gives you, like, it led you with all those questions, and everybody's kind of like, what is it, or what is gonna be, or like, it's really interesting, honestly.
Thank you. No, I think it is interesting, and I think that it presents a lot of opportunity, and some questions will get answered, but they'll just be, I'm pretty sure any question that gets answered will just create more questions. So Abraham did a great job on writing the first graphic novel, and he's already finished the script for the second graphic novel. And
nice.
We're still kind of working on some ideas of whether we put out some mini comics and things like that. So, because I do appreciate the lore, and it's not everyone's cup of tea. It's certainly something that adds to the story itself. So I can't wait to bring it some more. I think Jaeger's the main character of the second graphic novel, so I think that'll be
that's cool
in itself. Yeah,
that's Jorge's favorite character. We can listen to you, Jorge. Your microphone.
Yeah, I have like a keen thing for like werewolves and like feral creatures and stuff like that. He looks really cool. Now, as far as the concept, I know you've revealed 3 waves so far, and the Frazetta Barbarian was part of the 3rd wave, correct?
No, wave 2, the second wave.
Wave 2, which is the Barbarians.
Barbarians, yes, it's the second wave.
Right. So, talk to me a little more about that Frazetta situation. Like, obviously, that's a proprietary licensed product, and we have Conans and we have Death Dealers out there. but how far deep are you going to travel down that hole in terms of character creation? Are we going to eventually see fire and ice characters, things like that?
So part of my pitch to the Rosettas was that I wanted to start with characters that weren't as well known in the mass population like Conan and Death Dealer, because most people, when they get to do any characters with the license, they usually focus on those two characters and they don't really do anything else in terms of action figures, right? And so it's a very deep library. There's hundreds and hundreds of characters that you could bring to life. And so, yes, we intend to do a very deep dive on a lot of the Frazetta characters. Now, some of his characters cross over into other IPs, like Lord of the Rings or Conan, or let's see what else is there. Fire and Ice is a good example. And so sometimes those IPs cross over, so you have to make sure that you have the rights and or get the licensing approval from another party to get those to happen. So, but for right now, yeah, we planned on doing at least one character every other wave, if not getting to the point where we do like one character every wave. And so it's a question. I don't know what character would you like us to do next for each of you?
Oh, Jorge has some ideas.
Okay.
I definitely would love to see, that one character that looks kind of like Thor. He has like the wings on the helmet.
The Dark Kingdom guy, he's kind of hunched over like he's coming through a walkway.
Yeah,
kind of.
Yes, that one.
That guy's badass.
I would love the one with the I think it's a wolf, like, and the head is always
like
a cat. I think so.
Oh, Jaguar God, maybe, or is it?
It's that one.
Jaguar God is the guy from Fire and Ice. He's amazing.
The guy from Fire and Ice. They're very close. They're very similar in their style. Yeah. Okay, so Dark Kingdom and then Fire and Ice and then the Jaguar God. Yeah.
Only the female
females are really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
is really bad nudity because she's literally naked with a transparent gown, but
yeah, so that's kind of hard. It's not hard to do per se, but it can limit your audience on who purchases it, right? And so there are ways around that. You can offer, for lack of a better term, clothing options, right? For certain characters, even the ones that are clothes can be considered pretty risque in certain households. So,
yeah.
While I certainly don't go into it trying to please everybody, I don't want to really alienate a lot of people either. So it's something we're putting a lot of thought into. But yes, females, especially Frazetta's females, are on the table to do. I don't know. We might start with something like the Huntress. Might be the first female we start with, maybe. She's clothes, but she's still pretty. She's basically wearing a fur bikini, for lack of a better term, or a leather bikini. But a really cool character in itself. So that might be a good place to start there. But it's certainly one of the other concepts that we are toying around with is if you do female characters, you want to make sure that you balance it out between, if you have one character that's maybe overly sexual, you make sure you have another female character that's not overly sexual, right? And so, but still, maybe sexual is not the right word, but just more empowered, can be still really, really cool or whatever, but just with a little bit more clothing on it, right? So that's kind of the idea. So you have some balance there. Yeah.
So yeah, I was always like wondering, because I was a huge like heavy metal fan. I'm talking about the magazine.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
And there's a lot of inspiration, like Frazetta inspiration, Alcala inspiration on those characters from heavy metal. And I was like, wow, if if Savage Crucible is exploring on the Frazetta side of art, like what are the odds that we can get characters really similar, or maybe characters that they came from that heavy metal magazine from back in the days? That will be insane, like, or some character inspired, not maybe not like the same character, but something inspired on those characters from the heavy metal. I remember
Like
they were really sick.
Like Fact 2 and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's crazy characters there.
Oh yeah, I agree completely. I loved heavy metal when I was. I mean, that was a great magazine back in the day. And we all always snuck around trying to watch the animated movie when we were younger too. At least when our parents weren't around. Or maybe our dad was really cool. Who knows? But no, I agree with you. Yes, there's some badass females, and that presents a lot of potential. But the thing about female characters is you can't overdo them. I think one or two a wave tops is where you can be at. I think Zesray did a really great job and even Valverse, how they released just 3 females at once and not like a lot. But that was sort of because they didn't have any females in the line yet, either of those lines. So I think that's a good way about going about it. But overall, I think that it's something we definitely want to explore and something we're trying to explore. So, and I would really would appreciate it if our females had multiple heights. I think we're talking about that internally on how to go about that, because I think that would be a really nice thing to have in terms of like just diversity in terms of height, even among the females, would be really cool.
For sure. One of the things that I was like curious about is like, I'm friends with some of the guys at Loose Collectors, and I saw their female figures, Witchblade. They're doing Lady Dead. They're doing, I think, Purgatory, Vampirella, all those characters. The sculpt is amazing. Articulation, I will say, because of the body type, is a little bit limited.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering, because one of the things, or maybe the thing that most called my attention at PowerCon was when I saw those prototypes that you have there on the table. And I was talking to you how impressed I was on the articulation of those figures, especially from the photography standpoint. Like, you can bring your action figures to life. It's easier if you have a better articulation. And I was wondering, like, maybe these characters, you can manage a little better, I don't know, like the articulation. But with females, I always seen like some like tendency to lack of articulation, mainly in female characters, especially in that scale.
Yeah, so I think that well, I mean, I'll give you an example here. Well, sometimes Hasbro gets a bad rap. They do some things really well, and so like this Savage She-Hulk is actually, I mean, it's very tall for Marvel Legends, but it actually is a really great figure in terms of body proportions for a very athletic female.
Yeah.
And it has double elbows and double knees, whatnot. And I think that depending on the body type for a female character, I don't think you have to put in a butterfly joint per se. You might be able to get away with it. The problem you run into is if you make a female shorter and it doesn't have really long legs or really long arms, then you might actually need a butterfly joint in there to get some of the posing. And so that's a question that we're kind of working on in terms of that, going back to creating different heights. If you can do it in a way that you can minimize the amount of tooling needed to do that and it not look like a crazy body proportions. So yes, I mean, our intent with even the female characters is to still have a great deal of articulation. I think it can be done. Yeah, I do think it can be done.
Yeah, like I have this here just as an example because I remember when I was talking to you, I told you that your figures reminds me at 1,000 Toys figures. This is 1,000 Toys.
Yes. Oh,
This is a synthetic human. You may know the figure already.
oh yeah, I know it.
This is one of the most impressive figures articulation wise I ever seen in my life.
Agree.
It's insane because all the natural movements of the human body you can achieve with this figure.
Yep. Totally.
Like it's insane how 1,000 Toys managed to create a figure like this. I guess also because of the type of figure. I mean, it's a naked guy pretty much.
It's like a cyborg. I wonder
Exactly.
if they could make it look more real.
Like
if they would
I
get
wrote
real.
it.
Yeah.
But I remember when I saw your figures, I told you really clear. I remember like it was yesterday. I told you like, dude, your figures reminds me at 1,000 Toys figures. Like the butterfly joint, the crunching part, like even the articulation on the neck is insane. And I was telling Jorge, I was like, dude, I hope, like, I wish you have the opportunity to have one of these figures in hand. And this guy right here, the articulation this guy have, especially on the neck, you have like 3 points of articulation on the neck on this guy, which is insane. It's insane. I'm like blowing away with this figure, to be honest with you. It's so funny because I'm a huge Barbarian fan,
Right.
but after I'm messing around with this figure for taking pictures and stuff like that, I was like, Jesus Christ. I think my favorite wave from the line is gonna be the Pyranoids and the guys from the Abyss.
I mean,
It's insane.
now, look, 1,000 Toys. Those figures are incredible. Even the ones that are like the 1/6 scale. I have one of those as well. Those figures are just they're so the joints are so smooth. I mean, I could only dream if our figure was as smooth as that figure. I think the problem, like Jorge was talking about, the problem you get into is when you start adding mass to those joints, like putting shoulder armor and things like that. It starts to lose part of that articulation a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sort of the problem you have. But I do think that I mean, we did spend a lot of time on the articulation for the figures because I did want to have a great deal of articulation. I thought that was really important. Two-handed posing, dynamic two-handed posing is really important to me. That's just something it's great when a really large figure has some articulation, but the truth of the matter is they get too big, their articulation doesn't do you any good, and they're just a statue, and you might as well just make it a statue. So that's kind of the problem you get to when you get to really big figures. But I'm with you. Yeah, I think that I think we've done a decent job on the articulation. I think that people will find that based on what kind of armor is on the figure will limit how much the articulation, especially with the knees and the elbows. But if you put on bearskin parts, it'll be the articulation range of motion gets greater, things of that nature. But in considering what's out there in terms of figures that you can add armor onto, I do think that we're probably one of the more one of the better designs out there for that.
Yeah, I totally agree. And one of the things I wanted to tell you, Rob, is like, I think it's just kind of one of those right time, right place type of deals because if you look back, even as far as 10 years ago, the toy market wasn't what it is today. Basically, action figures has become an adult-driven consumer product. Toys is no longer something that kids ask their parents for Christmas. I mean, there still are some kids that ask for toys, but most of them have parents that are collectors. So, that opens up the landscape for projects such as this to become a toy line without needing the need of, media. You don't have to have a cartoon out there, a feature film. You just have a really cool concept and of course the financial backing and the artist skills, and you can get a really badass toy line going. And this looks amazing. I mean, potential for growth, characters. I was just talking to Carlos because I just recently saw the concept art page on your website, and I was blown away by
That's
my
insane.
favorite, it's the Were Clan. Holy crap!
Yep.
That Were Clan is next level stuff. I'm dying to see stuff like that in 3-dimensional form, final painted and whatnot. How far are we from a Were Clan? Is that would be like wave 4 or 5?
Well, I'll say that I did. Oh, on one of the Savage Crucible channel, we did a talk, and I think it was Gordon and Nikki and me and Stelios a couple weeks ago, and Gordon pulled out a 3D print of one of the Were characters that we'd already, because that's actually was sculpted along like 2 years ago. So a little bit, not final, but it's something that we can do.
Do you see them on the screen? I'm sharing my screen right now. Do you see the?
If you go to the 3D concept art, it might be in there, and it's an early design. There's still some work. So go up to the top for a second.
Go to the top.
Yeah, and then click on Savage Crucible all the way at the top.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, go over to your left. Sorry.
Do you know you go into that page in?
There you go. Now you go down to 3D concept art. Go all the way to the bottom now to the 3D concept art. Yep. All right, let's see. Scroll down. It may or may not be on here. I just don't remember. I haven't updated this in a long time.
You can become crazy if you're going to that page, dude.
These aren't finished sculpts. These are just concepts. But keep scrolling down. Oh, there he is, right there. Yeah, right there. The white one, the one with the white background. Click on that one. Go up to
white background, right there.
Oh wow! Look at that. So this would be like a slate right here, which is like an early mid-transformation werewolf, and this is final form.
Yeah, and so like there's still some tweaking to do on certain things, but you get the idea. Is like you can use the core furry body to add parts that beef up and make you a full-size kind of werewolf character. Wow. And so that's one of the things that we were working on. Like I said, that's over like 2 years old at this point.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's and if you notice in the second wave, Jaeger has furry arms, and that's part of it is like we're just kind of sneaking in a couple pieces here and there, and so that you can make different types of characters later. Right. So we I look at it from two different standpoints when we're creating or putting figures in a wave. One is just using a base book and using a lot of different parts around it, and then trying to sneak in a couple of parts that we're going to use later to create entirely new figures. And then the concept is like you have to think of it as getting your bare arms and legs in. You have to think about getting your chain link arms and legs in. Then you got to think about getting your armor torso in, and getting your leather torso in, and sort of those things so that you can open up more possibilities and create different characters. So,
yeah.
How
modular
the figures are gonna be? Like which parts are gonna be detachable? Like let's say like you have, for example, let's say Marvel Legends figures that you can detach from the shoulders, and you detach the whole arm and the hands. So you have pretty much this part that is entire, and then you have the hands and the torso, and maybe the upper legs you can detach. How you're like visualizing?
So you can there's a few parts that you can't really interchange between each wave, but in the first 3 waves you can think of it like this. The first 3 waves you can use any feet on any character, any shins on any character, any knees on any character, any thighs on any character, any hands, any forearms, any elbows, any biceps, any shoulder joint, any abdomen, and any upper torso. And then the piranha have a unique placement for their head. So while the ball joint does work for the other heads in wave 1 and 2, the human and the Lemurian heads, necessarily will fit on that socket. It won't look very good. It'll look really weird, and vice versa. But the shoulder armor is interchangeable between wave 1 and wave 2. The deltoid armor is interchangeable between all three waves. So, you can take the shoulder armor off of Como, or the deltoid armor rather, off of Como, and you can put it on a Piranhanoid. The waist piece is the same thing. So you can make a complete Frankenstein monster if you want to. There's no reason you can't. Now, we try to make it as modular as possible for that very reason. And if you look at the amount of new sculpting in each wave, so by the time you get to wave 3, you'll have, I think, 12 or 16 different waist pieces that you can make different looking characters, at least that many different deltoid armor pieces, shins and forearms, etc. I mean, if you want to take it further, you can take the bare forearms off the Piranhanoids and use them as armor on the humans, because then you just have like a scale forearm piece that'll look pretty cool that way. So incredibly interchangeable swap and pop possibilities. And it's only going to expand as you get more and more parts. So going back to D&D references, if you want a rogue-like lizard man character, which you see in some of the concept art, you can pull the arms off of a Lemurian and put it on like the Jaeger body to create that.
Wow, that's
that
awesome.
is crazy. That's really, really crazy. One of the things that
with that.
one of the things that caught my attention was how soft is the actual harnesses, and I was impressed because the material you guys use is, like, for example, the helmet on the Piranhanoid, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is a material that it looks really good, like, because that's one of the things that I always worry about, is like the type of material some people use when they paint. For example, your figures comes with tons of paint apps.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's incredible. I mean, Nicole did an amazing job, and all the guys like behind the paint masters and stuff.
The camera so we can see.
But the thing is, like, how pliable is this thing? It's incredible. You're not gonna be like breaking this or anything like that, because like the type of material, the rubbery material you use in every single aspect of the actual skirt and everything is really, really soft. But at the same time, it has a lot of detail, paint apps and everything. It's incredible.
Thank you. Yeah, Alex Wu painted that figure. Yeah, I mean, it's a good thing that when you have a production manager that is well versed as ours is on making toys, the short hardness of the plastic comes into play, and understanding how that works, and when you have breaks and things like that. So having experienced people is really important. Having experienced factoring people that are understanding what you're trying to do is super huge to the success of a toy line.
I totally agree with that. And that's my next question. The first thing called my attention before I talked to you at PowerCon from Savage Crucible was the people behind the project. And I'm telling you, because since I'm talking about 2008, maybe around there, I'm a huge Masters of the Universe Classics fan. Back in the days, I was admin in Motu Nation, was one of the biggest Masters fan page on Facebook, and I had pretty much every single Motu Classics in my house, every single one, in box and loose, and also customs. And one of my favorite, if not my favorite customizer for Motu Classics was Kevin Dallas. And when I saw that Kevin was there, I totally lost track on Kevin, because I started collecting other lines and I went away from the Masters of the Universe world. And when I saw Kevin Dallas there, and then I saw Nikki Nicole and Eric and a bunch of people there, I was like, wow, this is like inside the fantasy customizer world. This is kind of like the VIPs of custom figures design. And that's what caught my attention, to start checking on the line. And I was like, wow, these people are here. Then I started looking all the designs and everything, and I was blowing away. And that I always wanted to ask you, like, how that came into that, how it became that dream team, how you visualize that, how you approach that, what was the idea behind that?
Well, I'm just blessed. That's all there is to that. I mean,
It's incredible. You have a dream team.
Well, obviously, I own my Action Figure Customs website and company, and we 3D print parts mostly for Mythic Legions. And so I was, I think I've sculpted 2 pieces my entire time at MAFC, and through working through MAFC and getting in touch with like Gordon and Kevin and Arlen and Matt O'Toole, Lee J. Robinson, those guys were all sculpting for me, and sculpting for themselves rather. But it was just kind of neat because you just get individual artists who are very talented and have their own vision, because they love fantasy just as much as I do. And they felt just as frustrated, and they're like, well, I really want this type of character, but no one's doing it. So we started out making types of characters that would, make custom parts like they used to do for Motu, like Kevin and Matt O'Toole did with Castle of Power. And from there, you're making these great custom unpainted parts, and people wanted them painted, because not everybody can paint or has
Correct.
the time to learn how to paint, or they just literally just don't have the time. You got kids, whatever, you just don't have time to dedicate to that kind of hobby. So I started working with painters. So that's where Nikki Nicole and Eric Miller came into play, and Tim Peake. And it just sort of worked to where I had all of these talented people. And luckily, I have people like Arlen Pelletiers and Nick Whitmore, who are actually professional toy sculptors before Savage Crucible, and they worked for Lego and Boss Fights, Hasbro and Mezco, and that's one of the big differences. There are a lot of people that can sculpt. There are not very many people that know how to sculpt for action figures.
Correct.
All right, and so people can make some beautiful stuff, but they don't understand part of the cuts and some of the things, the tolerances that you need to create action figures. And so that's how the team came together, was just through MAFC, and it was just a conglomerate of people being creative to make extra money on the side. And it was just, we all got along really great. And when you have that much talent in one place, you start talking about the things that you wish you could see in action figure form. Like even with 3D printing and making customs, you're still limited by what's out there. And that was sort of what really was the impulse to create Savage Crucible, is to give us an opportunity to create what we wanted to see in the world. And I give free leverage to everybody on the team. They get to add their own part to it. And so they all bring ideas to the front that they want to see. And some are very, very unique. Like Jaeger's a great example. We don't have any concept art for Jaeger. That came strictly out of Kevin Delisle's head. He just sculpted that guy. That was just a character that he had inside his head. I mean, bottom line, the great part of it is like the arms, the furry arms, Arlen Pelletier sculpted those for the werewolf character. Like, so that's just an example, like bringing some pieces together, and it's unique. It's a lot of fun. And I just think that, I can't say that it's luck. It feels more like a blessing, to be honest, because they are not only just literally talented artists, they're all they're really great group of people. Like, they have a lot of heart and they're just good people. And that's what I really enjoy. And the part that I think I like the most about them is that they'll tell me what's on their mind, even if they think that I may not like it. And that's really important to me. I don't really like to surround myself with people that just tell me what I want to hear. That doesn't really help me grow as a person at all. And it's also getting in an echo chamber is bad in business. Like, you don't ever want that. You want people that will tell you that I don't think this is a good idea, or I don't think this will sell, or whatever you're doing, whatever approach you're doing. It keeps you honest and keeps you on your toes. So
to tell you the truth, that's what you need. Like, people that tells you the truth. Like, listen, this may not work, and that works good for everything in life. You know, like that makes you the person you are. And I always say that. I always say that to Nikki, and every time I post something and I talk to her, I'm like, one of the most important things, like, not just how amazing the line is, how awesome the line will be also, but the people behind the line. Is I always look at the human side of things, right? And to me, it's not just important to have like very talented people behind, but good people also. And I always say that, for example, I apply that into my martial arts school, and I always say that to my students. I'm like, no matter how good you are, how many titles you win, how many medals you win, if you're an asshole, everybody's gonna remember you as an asshole, right? Nobody's gonna remember you as a champion. But if you're a good person, everybody will remember you as a good person, as a good champion. You know, like it's totally you're totally right. You need people around you like that.
Yeah, I think it's really it's a blessing, like Rob says, to have so many creative people involved, giving it their own little touch here and there, and it's very important when people don't have that chip on their shoulder and they think that they're the best at their trade or whatnot. Being open to criticism. Me as an artist myself, sometimes I'll be working on a sketch and I show it to my friend and he's like, "That looks like shit." Well, I'll explain to him what I'm trying to do, and then he's like, "Oh, I get it, but I still think it looks like shit." Oh, well, you have your opinion and your expectations of what you want, but there could be an audience for my concept or my idea. So yeah, it's really important to definitely have that openness to criticism and that openness to tweak and change things based on other people's opinions. And now that you mentioned the whole Mythic Legions thing, I know that this is kind of for lack of a better word, this is more like the toy line that's coming not after Mythic Legions, but it's kind of like, what's next? Because I've been collecting Mythic Legions. Carlos been collecting Mythic Legions. We all collect it. It's been around for years. The Horsemen are great guys, but there's still a lot of things in that line that I, as a collector, would like to have seen. For example, one thing that you guys tackled, putting the shoulder pad pegs on the back of the shoulder versus putting it in the back of the actual back piece. Things like that, which hinder range of movement, the placement of capes, things like that. I'm a big fan of the undead. So when it comes to the zombies and skeletons and all that, the Horsemen have done a pretty cool job. But if you think of it realistically, those proportions of the skeletons are not anatomically correct in the sense of the girth. So when you look at a skeleton, if you were to add mass and muscle to those skeletons, it would look like Popeye, because the bones are so thick and the girth is so. And I guess the reason why they're doing that is because they're trying to do, make them like, I guess, the tolerances of the plastic for it not to be as fragile. Other companies have tackled it. I've seen, for example, what's this company? Storm Collectibles. They have some really awesome undead skeleton soldiers, which, obviously they don't have the level of articulation that you would have on like an SH Figure Arts or something like that. But, it's interesting to see how you guys will approach when you get into that zombie, ghoul, undead kind of wave, how do you feel about tackling those figures in terms of engineering and the construction, for example?
So doing like a full skeleton build is actually pretty hard to make it modular to go with the pieces that you've already created, right? And that's I mean, Four Horsemen were definitely trying to push the envelope on that modularity when they did that, and successfully so. I mean, and then also there's some key components when you get into like stylized figures and things of that nature. Sometimes if you go too realistic with limited articulation, things don't look right, and so that's a problem on the other side of that equation. I think that with our modularity, you can definitely get into zombies and exposed bones very easily, but doing a full complete skeleton would be very problematic to make it modular with all the other pieces. So you would actually have to go down the line of creating a skeleton and just making it modular for its own sake, that where pieces didn't work with the regular flesh and muscle characters. So that's how I'd approach it. I'd probably start off with more zombie-esque and exposed bones and ripped flesh and things of that nature, given all the modularity, and then see if we can move into more of a full skeleton. And I don't even know if you need that, to be honest. Like, there's a lot of great skeletons out there. Do you need to come up with your own just for the sake of having a full skeleton? Can you just do a really good job of creating characters that are just zombie-esque and more of undead, that don't go full, mythical walking skeleton without any tendons or muscle on it? So
Yeah, I agree. I think that I wish I had an example here, but for example, if you're thinking about an undead character, for me, what makes undead really cool is the lack of symmetry. When I'm saying that is, for example, if one arm or femorus or whatever is exposed on the right, it doesn't necessarily mean the left needs to be exposed. So you can have an arm that already has armor or a chunk of chainmail on the bicep, or an elbow pad, or like sculpted clothing, tattered. It doesn't have to be a fully exposed skeleton, like you're saying. So I think where you create that modularity is where you could have like those kind of half exposed arms, like a forearm that's half exposing bone, half exposing rotted flesh, or if it's skeleton, full on skeleton, just half exposed bone, but actually sculpted where it's more leaning toward the realism of actual anatomy versus stylized thick bone structure that we see today in Mythic Legions. I mean, the Necronominus wave blew me away in terms of the things that they're pushing, like doing a skeleton horse.
It's beautiful. My horse was really awesome.
Yeah, but when you look at, if you're really getting picky and you really want to get to like doing that ultimate ghoul, that ultimate undead creature, I think that's the way to go, is have half exposure, not full exposure, but that way it lets you and the sculptor get away with actually rendering a realistic skeleton frame attached to other components of armor or clothing or whatnot. And that's just me. I can go on with like,
we're on the same page. Yeah, I agree with you completely. And then that goes back to everybody. Like, I don't really have a desire to put out like my version of anything. If I'm going to do something, I want to make sure it's definitely an improvement or a direction that someone else hasn't gone. Right. That's
right.
That's where I like to be. I don't, it's kind of like, it'd be like doing the Death Dealer right now. I mean, Mezco did a fantastic job with the Death Dealer. It's a great figure. It's a little smaller than what I like, but it's still an amazing figure. So I think the only way to really one up that is to go with a Death Dealer that definitely comes with a great horse.
Correct.
Yeah.
But I don't think the market needs that today. I think that would be a great thing to put out in, say, 2 years.
Yeah, down the road, maybe.
Yeah.
But I got a question for you now that we're talking about characters and stuff. Do you guys ever like try to design or so like some type of like pirate type characters for Savage Crucible?
Yes. In fact, the next tribute figure that is on my mind right now is a female character that's a pirate type character who relates back to, I don't want to say too much.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Don't worry.
There are characters in the line that are meant, we don't talk about this outside of Savage Crucible team, but some of the guys may not know, but like Who-Man is actually in the graphic novel, and I see your t-shirt, they owe to Guns N' Roses there. We'll play on that. So my brother was a big Guns N' Roses fan, and the character in the graphic novel is actually a tribute to him. He passed away like 20 years ago or so. And so that's, there's this whole reference to Guns N' Roses, Welcome to the Jungle, da-da-da. And that's why he's called Who-Man, because we never say his name, because I didn't really want to say his name in the graphic novel. So some people think Who-Man's some kind of play on He-Man or something. It has nothing to do with that. If you read the graphic novel, you'll realize that one of the other characters is trying to refer to the guy as a human, as in Who-Man. And so that's where that comes from. So the next tribute figure that we have on our radar is for one of the other team members whose sister is no longer with us. And we think we're going to make her into, she's a female, she's going to be a female pirate type character. And so I don't want to pigeonhole anything because he's going to have a lot to do with how that character gets designed. But she was a boatswain mate, and so yeah, I think that'd be a great way to do that. But I do like pirate characters. I think they'd be really great. That's why we have the Harbinger and the Piranhanoids, and
that's what I'm saying.
Those boats were in the little cartoons clip that we had, because I think that's an area that hasn't been explored a whole lot outside of like the Caribbean or whatever. Yeah, right.
Stuff out there, which is, so that's a great like universe to tap into, because there's nobody doing pirate stuff. So that would be.
That's why my question was, because one of the to me, like one of the best waves is like the Piranhanoid wave. So I was like, I wonder, because I saw also on the cartoon we have these pirate ships, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wow, it will be great if we have some pirate characters that goes with that Abyss code, not just Abyss code, but maybe enemies of the Abyss code, right?
Yeah,
that would be great. We don't have anything like that aside from maybe Pirates of the Caribbean characters, like that's
even
it.
That just get like a Johnny Depp figure. That's it.
Well, I mean the Plunderlings tie into that sort of that theme, but they're very it's very fanciful. It's not quite what I think we're looking for on fantasy whatnot. Still a really cool line, but I mean they're definitely typing into that sort of pirate theme a little bit there, which is really cool for what they are. But I don't think that's the exact direction we want to go in. But yeah, I agree with you guys. It's an untapped market. A lot of great characters. I think if you go to the 3D concept art, I think Kevin did a design there. There's a guy that's got like a fish helmet on, and I think, does he have a trident? No, he's got like a fish hook or something as a weapon. As a great early design. If you want to pull it up, I mean that's probably 2 years old too. It's just concept art. It's not even finished yet, but it's a great example. Doing a guy with a peg leg and stuff like that, I think would be a lot of fun.
That will be great. And now that we're touching like all these pirates and stuff, do you guys, I mean, I know it's early because we just almost finishing the Kickstarter, but do you guys want to explore maybe down the road some like type of vehicles and stuff like that?
Sure. So the problem when you get into the bigger stuff is the expense, and then how many are you going to sell, and do people have shelf space at this point? It's problematic. It's like the throne. In the Kickstarter we have the stretch goal for this throne, like 500,000 or whatever, and I think some people weren't happy that it's like a free STL download or something. They wanted me to make it, and I'm like, well, for giggles, I asked the factory about it, and they're like, yeah, we could produce it, and it wouldn't be that expensive, like per piece to produce it. The problem you run into is it would cost me like $25,000-$30,000 in tooling to have that one piece made, and then you need to order like 1,000 units.
Yeah, to make it worth it.
Yeah, to even make it worth it. And you're just like, okay, well, how many people are going to, drop $70-$80 for a throne? Like it doesn't, like versus if I spent that money on additional tooling, I could almost make an entirely new character full of parts to create, totally. Right? Totally. Yeah, so it becomes problematic. And so I think one of the things that we're talking about are larger animals to go with the figures.
Yeah, like mounts.
Right. So if you look at a lot of the, like Frazetta females, for instance, there's always like a panther or a tiger or some big animal like that next to them. So if you want to go down that road, you certainly want to create those type of animals. I like the D20 mounts, the wolf mount and the boar mount.
Oh, they're amazing.
They are amazing. They're also amazingly heavy. Just don't, if you're out there, please don't drop one on your foot. It will break it. But they're beautiful. They're beautifully painted. They come with great accessories, and but they're also very expensive, right?
They are really expensive. I was thinking on getting one of them, but geez, I'm into so many things right now. I'm collecting Mondo Masters of the Universe.
Me too.
You're talking about the big wolves.
It's way too expensive.
Go to the 3D concept art if you're looking for that sea guy.
3D concept. So yeah, that was my. You know what? And I was always almost thinking also, what about backgrounds? Like maybe like some, like some like.
You passed him. He's on the right hand. There you go. Yeah. So backgrounds, you're saying?
Yeah. Correct.
Oh yeah, that's really cool. He's almost like a conqueror, like a paranoid conqueror kind of.
Yeah, and so it's early concept. Like he would have more specific stuff, not reading.
That's a human, right?
That's a human, yeah.
Nice.
So that's just kind of tapping into that human-esque pirate theme right there. And so, yeah, and there's lots of ideas. Like you can see an early version of Jaeger if you go over just one more, like right there, right where you were. Go back. Yeah, no, not him. Go down. Go down right there. Yeah. Yeah, like that's an early version of Jaeger. That's the first version he did of him. So
nice,
awesome.
Yeah. But backgrounds, yeah, and so like there's a great idea. I mean, I would like to take credit for it, but it's not my idea. You'll see for like D&D tabletop games, they have they'll build like these portals, and they have where you can slide your phone into it. And so the phone creates the background for it, makes it look like it's a portal that's actually moving, and the whole thing hides your phone where you can't even see it, but you just see the screen. So
really,
it looks really awesome.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, so I've been working on that concept a little bit. Like that would be a great piece to have, and like just because one of the things is I try to be mindful of how much space people have, and I also try to be mindful of like we all like to display our collection and make it cool. And so I think I don't think people realize yet some of the things that we're sprinkling in. So like on the Wave 1, there's this character pack and there's this like skull plate thing, and it does go on, it does fit on the face of Como, but you don't have to have Como to use it. It's a skull, piece of a skull, so you can just buy it and you can put it on the floor of your display, and there's just a skull there, right? Like a broken piece of skull. So yeah, that's how you spice up your display, is you create these little smaller pieces that people can put in there that add character to the display. And so whether it's like torches or like like lights or something. Like, at 3MFC we sell these things called dead lights, and it's literally like a stack of skulls, and you put a tea light on the inside, and that's another great example of a great piece. Where I think a lot more people would like to have that piece that can't really paint or dedicate the time to paint. So
totally.
Yeah, so stuff like that would be really cool to add character.
Like, for example, I have some dioramas, right? And mainly my dioramas has the same dimensions of the details.
Right.
Right. So I've seen this company, I think it's from Japan. It's always next to the Ace Age Figure Arts stuff in my comic store. I don't remember the brand. I think it's Tamachi, maybe. They're doing like these cardboard backgrounds that is like you have like the back and one side and then the floor and that's it. And like things like that are like really cool, especially for these figures. And one of the things that I always notice is like when you have this type of dioramas and stuff that I use for photography and everything, one of the most challenging like task that I have is to find somebody who makes me an actual good kind of like castle type of ancient type of diorama. Like everybody makes alleys, houses,
like ruins.
Yeah, but that's why mainly the photography that I use with all my barbarian He-Man and stuff like that is outdoors. And then I need to play a lot with the lighting, the natural light. It's a little bit challenging, but I mean, worth it at the end of the day. But yeah, it will be great to have like some backgrounds like that, to have like, like, and set it up, like, to take some pictures or just for display.
The idea of having cardboard backgrounds is a little more realistic than physical. You know how like some people throw around the concept of build a diorama type of thing. It's kind of like an engineering nightmare. But I feel like, for example, we were talking about pirates, the opportunity of having booty in the sense of like having treasure chests, having mounds of gold, having all those little extra accessories that are kind of what we would call like world building parts. That would be awesome. And even with the Abyss clan, I could definitely see stuff like that. You could have maybe like a piece that's kind of like coral, like underwater plants, and have some sort of element thrown in there, like a skull inside the plants or something. And it's stuff that you could display with those figures that kind of brings that world out and makes it more three-dimensional.
Little stuff like, look at this, like things like this that can make like your display a little bit, like things like that.
Like ironically, like one of the things that we were talking about was rocks. This plastic rocks, they can size with anything. Whatever figure you have, it can be a small rock, and if it's a smaller figure, then it's just a big rock, right? Like, and
you can make it carry them.
You're on the same page. And so, like this, even you think it's just a rock, who cares, right? But no, it creates a lot of opportunity. And so, yes, I think the little things are the parts that are missing. And so we talked about like, and you guys might have done this, where you actually buy a toy because you're more interested in some accessory that it has that you want. You don't care anything about the figure. Like you just want the accessory.
I even use the mini brands from my daughter. To take pictures.
My friend buys aquarium parts. He buys like different dioramas for aquariums, and some of them work fairly well. But yeah, there's some worlds that you just can't find the right thing. Like I think, for example, even something as simple as a cliff edge, where it's just like a rock formation in a slight slant. You could have little pegs built into the top, whatever, and just have, like a sculpted moss edge or like rocks or whatever, or twigs. Something like that would be amazing. And people would buy it not only for Savage Crucible, but they'll buy it to enhance their existing other toy lines, you know. So stuff like that with world building is also, you know, a market that hasn't really been tapped a lot. And I get it, it's not, the marketability is not there. Like there's not going to be as many people buying those parts as they would be buying action figures, but it's something that would be awesome if it were to be offered. You know what I mean?
No, I do. I do. And it's just a question of what's the minimum number that you need to be successful in terms of, you know, people buying the part, and how long do you have to hold the inventory to do it, and then how much resources are you taking up in dollars versus you could be putting that into the actual figures, making new parts for them. And so I think ramping up, you know, we're very happy with the amount of success that we've had to date. We're thrilled to death. It's way more popular than I thought it would have been through the Kickstarter. But I do think by the time, you know, the second year rolls around, you will start to see some of these sort of smaller things coming out of our shop that are like one-off pieces that we offer. I don't think they're going to be as big as a throne or anything like that, but you'll start to see some of these one-off pieces that I think will really help people bring out their displays and add some character to them. So
as far as the Kickstarter is concerned, I don't know, you know, if a lot of people have asked you this, but so you broke this up into 3 waves. So for example, I'll give the example of one of the most recent Kickstarters, which is really cool too, is the Sparrow Toys Animal Warriors of the Kingdom. So a lot of people are like, oh, I haven't gotten my order. And, you know, what Jason has said is like, if you ordered wave 1 and 2, then what they're doing is they're holding off both waves until everything's in the warehouse and then shipping both waves together versus shipping, oh, I got wave 1 in stock, let me ship these out now. And then when wave 2 comes in, we'll ship them out. So is that kind of like the same plans that you have as far as fulfillment for backers when the waves start coming out?
So the graphic novel, the Decoder coin, and the Dwarf coin set will ship out over this summer. As soon as I get all 3 back, they'll ship out this summer. Then when wave 1 comes in, we'll ship them out. Wave 2 ships out, and wave 3 ships out. And that's the way we designed the Kickstarter, was then how we set up the shipping costs and things like that, was so that it would, each wave would get sent out as it comes in.
Okay.
Now, we have the benefit of hindsight and learning from all the people that came before us. And, you know, people really wanted us to add things to the Kickstarter that they could buy and stretch goals. And I told people from the beginning that I wasn't going to do that. And the reason why is it's very simple. Like, you can get really wrapped up in a Kickstarter because you like seeing that number get bigger and bigger each day, right? The problem you run into is if you keep adding things, you do 2 things. One is you overwhelm your factory. A factory only has so much space. They can only make waves of a certain size. So if you have this massive Kickstarter project, the factory kind of doesn't really want to do it. They kind of keep just pushing it off because they don't want to try to even handle such a massive project at one time. It's not fun for them. So that's why a project keeps getting delayed. The bigger the wave, the more the factory doesn't really want to deal with it. The second part of that is the more stuff you add, the more you alienate certain customers. And so that's why throughout the Kickstarter, we've been very blatant that you will have another opportunity to pre-order wave 2 and wave 3. The price will be higher, slightly higher. It'll definitely be higher if you go through retail, but direct is what I'm referring to, direct from our website. It will still be higher because Kickstarter backers are getting the best price per figure and best price per shipping. So I didn't want anyone to feel pressured like they had to buy all 3 waves at one time, which is over $600, which, you know, some people may not think it's a lot of money, but other people, that is a lot of money. So yeah. I'm trying to be cognizant of that. And that's why our waves aren't like massively huge. I think the sweet spot's between 160 and 240 on a wave size. I think that's affordable for most people every quarter, roughly every 3 to 4 months. Anything more than that, you're asking too much of your fans. You're putting too much of a burden on them. And that's not something that I want to do. So Yes, they will ship independently each wave. I actually do like what Jason's doing. When he went into the Kickstarter, he didn't have it set up perfectly that way. And I think that people don't realize that, he had two options. He could just have held on to everything until everything came in, and nobody would have got anything right now, right? And so I think for all the people that are complaining that they haven't gotten anything, you're really just, I get what you're saying, but Jason did what he had to do to get stuff out in a timely manner from the factory, which was smart on his part. So if he'd done it the other way and tried to make the factory do it all at once, then the project would have been delayed even more, and you would have had to wait even longer. So I don't, seeing it from the other side, knowing how the decisions were made and they're doing the best thing they can for the fans, it's nice to see. And I know that you can't please everybody all the time, but you have to understand when you get into a Kickstarter and you keep adding goals, it's not a good thing. It does increase the dollar amount. It is very exciting. And yes, you should eventually get your stuff, but the downside of it is it just keeps pushing the delivery date farther and farther back.
Right.
And it spread things out, right? It's more like you're trying to, like, sometimes they say, like, if you try to buy too much, it's gonna be a problem.
But either way, if you go all in, right, you're going to be charged on that deadline for that all-in purchase. It's not going to be like, hey, we're going to charge you for the summer delivery now, and then we'll charge you for the other. They're going to still charge you all at once, right?
Yep. That's right. Yep. And on the Kickstarter, like we did it where if you do the all-in for each wave, like it's cheaper than buying the figures individually, and then the all-in you get free shipping, domestic free shipping for all-in waves. And the shipping for even international is still cheaper. So I think if you go like on wave one, if you went all in with shipping and the reduction in price, it's over $30, $35 that you're saving easily at that point. Plus you get a free coin.
That's a lot.
Wave coin. So it's a good deal. It's a really good deal. We tried. That's the best I could do at that point. So
yeah, I got the wave 1 and 2, I think, all in, and then when you add the wave 3, I add the wave 3 all in. But I was able to get I think it was the barbarian coins or the dwarfs coins.
The dwarf coin set, yeah, the free dwarf coin set. Yep.
Yeah, correct. And also I got a question for you because you mentioned this. Did you ever think, let's say when we were back in 2022 in PowerCon, right? Back in that day, the raw thing that the Savage Crucible Kickstarter will be this massive? Like,
No.
I mean, you always have good expectations because you are the owner, you are the one who's creating the product, and of course you have good expectations. Of course, I mean, you need to have that vibe in order to be succeeding in life and everything. I mean, of course, if I'm going to compete in any competition, I'm gonna bet on me,
Right.
But do you ever imagine how massive will be?
No, I thought honestly, baseline expectations. And if you're paying attention to the Kickstarter, it was obvious. Like I thought that it would take us like 3 to 4 weeks to finally get to unlock all 3 waves. I thought it would take us a week to fund, and if you told me what a fund in under 7 hours, I would have laughed. I said, "There's no way." Like, yeah, it's not happening. And so yeah, I was completely off guard at how successful it was. I thought we would end up around 800 backers, and I think we're at like 1,400 or something right now. I never would have guessed that. I thought it would do well, but I didn't think it was going to be this good out the gate, especially given all the other Kickstarters happening at the same time. A lot of people are hesitant to back Kickstarters because of, they've been scammed before and things like that. I don't know what to tell people. I'm like, $500,000 doesn't go really far with me. I might be able to move to Brazil and live 6 months on that. That'd be about it. I don't, I mean, it's a large sum of money, but it's that's not enough money to cut and run. I think the average person on Kickstarter that tries to start a toy line doesn't have an idea of how much things cost, and I think that they trust the wrong people, and that gets them in trouble. I think that being behind the scenes and hearing some of the horror stories that have happened to other creators that are still creating, people have taken their money and run that live in China, because at the end of the day, when you hit that button, you send that wire transfer, you better know who you're sending your money to. That's the truth. And so there are a lot of people actively, even now, still messaging me, acting like they can produce my stuff in China for me. And it's like, you don't have any interest in that. You got to know who your business partners are when you're dealing with them. And I think people start out with the best intentions, and they go through the motions of having somebody sculpt something, but they don't really know who they're talking to on the other end of the phone and who they're sending their mony to, and that's what gets them in trouble.
That's what is so important. What you mentioned, that you have people with a lot of experience behind this, and yeah, that's one of the things. But let me tell you something. This is gonna be like a snowball. You know that, right? Like you know how fans are when, especially after wave 1 getting hand, and people will be able to actually. Because I can talk by myself, because I was blessed to have one of your prototype in my hand, right? But when the fans have this in hand, this is gonna be like a snowball.
I hope so.
No, definitely. I mean, I have a prototype, and I'm like blowing away just for the prototype that I barely can touch because it's super.
Oh yeah. And people are like, "Oh, are the figures going to be that way?" I'm like, guys, they don't have mushrooms. They're just made to easily go together. You're just testing the range of motion. They're not meant to be held together. It's not a toy. Like, it's not the same thing.
Oh, dude, I was freaking out when I was outside on the outdoors taking those pictures on the Everglades. I was like, Jesus Christ, like, I better don't miss any of these little pieces. Like, I was so careful, especially with the sword.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I was like, Jesus. And also the helmet. I was like, I better don't miss this, because it was green with all the green there.
Yeah.
And I always have like the figure here in the little box. I was like, listen, but that's my point. My point is like, it's so funny because, and it's so impressive because I remember that day, and I always go back to that day where you were sitting there in that table with your figures, and I approached you, and you were super nice with me, super humble about your line. We were chatting like maybe for half an hour or so. Then I did the little interview for my Instagram, and it was crazy. Like, from that point of where we are right now, where we are and where you gonna be like in the future. And I always tell you this, and I always will tell you this, like, listen, if you guys keep doing what you're doing right now, I mean, this will be one of the most amazing lines in the toy community, for sure. 100%.
Well, we're going to keep trying. There's no doubt about that. I think the amount of passion from all of us on the team is pretty overwhelming. I mean, I can't tell, like, for us, it's a dream come true. Like, I mean, like you talk about Kevin was over the moon that he got to sculpt a Frazetta toy. Like, first of all, it's a dream for him just to sculpt a toy, right? But then Frazetta is like his all-time favorite artist. Like, you have no idea how much that man was excruciating over that figure. And it's just, like Lee J. Robinson still, like, they're all just incredibly humble about their contributions, and they're all excited, but they all, they're all on pins and needles, right? Like they're all thinking like, okay, what's the next bad thing going to happen? Or, like they're just like, someone's not going to like it when they get in person. I'm like, this stuff is amazing. You guys are crazy. Like this is the best stuff I've seen in years. And I love them all. And I do think that it's a bright future. And, I don't know how big we'll get. We'll just see. And we'll take our lumps and our bumps as they come. But I don't know everything. None of us on the team know everything, and there's always something that can come out of left field, and we'll fix it as it comes. That's not going to deter us. So we just want to make great figures that people really enjoy. And I don't, from being as a collector, there's certain things that I want to do that I think can be done in a fiscally responsible manner that I want to see happen. I don't want to see a lot of tooling overused. That doesn't mean we won't use tooling again. I just don't want it to be overused. I think that you can have a great sculpt and really good articulation. I think that's possible. I think that if you give people, character packs that have new sculpts in them, people will buy them instead of, asking them to buy packs of parts they've already seen multiple times, repainted, right? So those are things that I think people want. I think that people want the smaller diorama pieces that add to their display. I think that's really key and really important. I think that overall, I think that people want to be rewarded for backing a toy line from the beginning. So, my job is to sell as many toys as I can, but I need to do it in a responsible manner that actually reflects that I care about my customers that supported me from the beginning. So will I ever reissue a Como figure? Sure, but he'll be different. He'll be either a different paint scheme or he'll have different pieces to him, but we might do that character again. But no, this will be your opportunity to get that character. And so that's important. I also don't want to create like false scarcity, right? I don't want to put pressure on people to feel like they have to buy something in a 48-hour period or a month period or whatever, because I realize that you can change how much you want to order from the factory right up to the day you give the factory the number. So in theory, you should be able to collect orders from people all the way up to a couple of days before you tell the factory how many you're going to order, right? So why are you putting this whole like fear of missing out on people? I don't really like that. I think that, you can get more orders that way in the short term, but I think it hurts you in the long term. And I think in a lot of businesses today, everyone's focused on the short term and not the long term.
Long-term relationship, my friend.
Exactly. So one last thing I wanted to ask you, Rob, is obviously, we're the type of collectors that like to open our stuff. Like I say, open up your shits and play with them, But there's a lot of people that are into that mint on card thing. So can you tell us a little bit about the approach as far as packaging? Is it like a collector friendly packaging where you're going to be able to repackage everything? It looks like it's the day you bought it, or how is that going to be approached?
So, I've always had a problem with that term collector friendly. It sounds cute, but it's also another word is cheap. And the other word is it's not actually collector friendly for the people that collect mint, because you have no idea if the package has actually been opened or not. Yeah. For the most part. So I just, I appreciate the marketing term. That's a good job, but it doesn't seem that way. So I think, I don't think, I know that our packaging for the deco figures, the high dollar figures are 38. They're going to be in a box very similar to like NECA and Predators. It's a box, but it has a lid that covers it. So if you open up the lid, you can see the figure. It'll have a window box, but the window box is protected. Each figure in a wave will be thematically the same, but the name of the character will be different. So for those people that want to collect mints, they'll know that it's mints for the most part. And then the people that want to open can open. I haven't theorized the opening it back up to put it back in part. I'm more focused on the box being awesome to catch your eye, in the sense that it looks really awesome. And then I've put a lot of time, me and Gordon have, into thinking about like the imagery on it and how much information, because it's a great opportunity to put a lot of lore about each character.
Yes.
Especially when you get that, you think about a NECA box and it's like that big of a page, you can put a lot of lore in there that adds to each character. So I think that's really important. And then I think also, to be honest, I think people miss a lot of opportunities in how they design their packaging. Because when you think about like each flap that you open on a box, that's an opportunity to put some writing there that no one does, right?
Yes.
And so whether it's warnings, heat up your figure, whatever it is, those are all opportunities to place, different information there using every inch of the box that you can. So that's where we're at on the collector-friendly packaging. That's what I envision, because I envision, like, I know some people like to hang them on the wall and things like that. I think more people probably put them on bookcases and kind of slide them in like they're books. It's just a preference. The problem with the card back on bubble is it can lead to a lot of damage, and a lot of sunlight gets in there. The more light gets in there, the more the figure will discolor over time. So things like that are things that I think about. So I know that some people do like it, and I can understand why they like it. Because that's just the packaging that I chose to go with.
So it's going to be pretty similar to the NECA package, right?
Yep.
So kind of like, let me see if I can pull something. You say something like this?
No.
Oh, like the War Duke.
Like the word.
Like the ones that are a book. Like it opens.
Let me see.
Like, this is a good example. Here we go.
Oh, you have one?
Yeah.
Nice.
All right.
Yeah.
So
I love them.
So the way that we have it designed is like the inside cover will be like a lot of lore on the individual figure.
Beautiful.
Yep. And then having the wave crest on the fronts and a little bit of information on the back. But we have an example on the Kickstarter of like one of the designs. Yeah. We have multiple designs. Now the slate, the Savage, and the character packs themselves will come in a slightly different packaging. It won't have a cover, just because, quite frankly, the slates, I think, are just figures that people are going to use to customize for the most part, or army build. They're not really interested in packaging.
It's going to be army builders.
Right. So there's not a reason to put a lot of money into that packaging per se.
And I got a question. Like, now that you mentioned that, when we're talking about the Kickstarter, right? I remember really clear that you were talking in one of your lives, one of your interviews, you touched that topic about the Kickstarter, and if you are planning to redo a figure that already exists, a character, and you were telling about respecting the Kickstarter backers, that they feel that they really have something unique, that they really feel that they're taken care of, and not like redoing this stuff where they feel kind of like betrayed, because they're like, oh, I feel this was exclusive and now it's not, whatever, lose the value, lose the whatever. So that's really important, at least in my point of view, because I collect Mezcos, right? So, and back in the days when I was collecting Mezco, when Mezco was really exclusive, not now that, that they make like hundreds. I remember when I was collecting the Batman Dark Knight Returns Batmans. Like, if you get this SDCC exclusive, I remember I had the Puerto Rico exclusive. That was it went up to 5K. That crazy, right? Or the ninjas. Remember the white ninja? That was insane. And I remember I was feeling kind of like, that pride as a collector that I have an exclusive item, Yep. Nowadays, I feel that we're losing that feeling, and I think that kind of like keep people kind of like away. Nowadays it's more like, okay, I want to collect and a bunch of stuff, but you're not like having that real unique feeling that you have when you have something really exclusive like a grail in your collection. And that's what we kind of like want to achieve with this Kickstarter, correct?
Yeah, at least in the sense that with the first wave, you know. So I think that the conclusive figure is a great example. Domestically, that won't be offered outside of the Kickstarter. So online anyway, you know, we'll still have extras that we sell at conventions, and we might have some that we give away on like contests and stuff like that. But like the conclusive figure domestically will be exclusive. Now we'll do more conclusive figures in the future, and what that simply means is I don't personally like figures exclusive to one show because it makes it really hard for collectors that live in other parts of the country.
Correct.
So the idea is that we do these conclusive figures, and then we keep them, and as we go to different shows around the country, it gives people an opportunity to come to the booth, see us, and pick up one of these more exclusive figures. And so I don't expect anyone to fly across the country for that. You know, we have plans where we'll basically do two shows a year, probably like maybe Atlanta and maybe like PowerCon, and then 2 other shows that we rotate based on geography around the country. Having said that,
Florida,
right. The other aspect of it is that people outside of the U.S. never get an opportunity for those exclusive figures, and so that's one of the things that we're working on. Where like certain conclusive figures will be available to international people, but will not be available to people domestically, as an example. And you know, that's something that we're working on just in concept right now, but I try to be as fair as I can. You know, there's a certain point, like when you get into a Kickstarter, what's really tough is even though you're really successful and you sell, you know, you meet your goals or whatever, your numbers still aren't really high where you want them to be to get the best pricing on figures, right? And so if you start offering like a lot of exclusive figures in a Kickstarter, but you're trying to offer them at a discounted price, it doesn't work very well for you. You don't really have a chance to really make any money. And when I say money, I just mean make your money back. I don't think people realize how much money goes into manufacturing figures. Just in the first wave, we have about $90,000 to $100,000 in tooling on the first wave. So if you correlate that to the goal of like 120, 140, you know, we're just paying for the production cost of wave 1. We're not even paying for the tooling. That's money that came out of my pocket. It's just a long-term investment. So yeah, I think that, you know, it's just like, will we do more Lemurian characters in the future? Yes, we will. They'll definitely have different paint sets. They'll definitely have new heads. Maybe some new armor pieces. Maybe some armor pieces get reused. However, you know, like I said, they're going to be different pieces. So whatever the run is at the factory for this first wave, that's it. I'm not going back and redoing it. Now, that's a controversial standpoint from a business standpoint, because if I could sell 2,000 more of them, why wouldn't I do that? And the idea is simply that I don't want to. I mean, I truly believe that there's so many people that have taken a chance and stepped up and to support us that I want to reward them with that. So
you're a collector, my friend.
I know I am. I mean, I'm not, you know, I want people to have the opportunity to get it, but at the same time, I'm not going to like bend over backwards just to make a couple extra grand. Like I don't care. You can't buy me for that cheap. I'm way more expensive. I'm a very, very expensive prostitute. Very expensive. Very. I'm not even sure what my price is, to be honest, but getting back to it. Yeah, no, I as a collector, I do want to make it relatively easy for people to get the figures. I do appreciate the idea of chase figures, and I do appreciate the fact that going to a show or a convention, there's part of picking up something that's hard to obtain is nice, and I get all of that, and I want to reward that behavior and that experience. You know, it goes back to one of the things that mentally that I tried to work on. I appreciate online retailers, but the people that buy toys and then have a storefront or go to conventions to sell toys, those people do a much bigger service to the toy community because you get the opportunity for your toys to be seen by so many people that otherwise wouldn't see it. And that's a really important thing. And so ironically, the way it's set up is, generally speaking, more people do more sales online, so the online retailers get the biggest discounts. But the people that probably drive more new people into collecting and or collecting your line are the people that put your stuff out at toy shows or at comic stores or at toy stores.
Correct.
You can see it. So that's something I've been trying to struggle with, trying to work on. How do I make that happen to incentivize those people, maybe to give them a better rate? Those are just ideas that, from a business standpoint, that we come up with.
That's good.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Oh, it makes sense. And, hey, we're just shy of what? It ends on Saturday, the Kickstarter?
Yeah, it's, I want to say like 11 p.m. Central on Saturday, I think. It might tell me right now. Let's see. Yeah, there's 2 days and 3 hours. So, yeah, I think that's correct.
Wow. Incredible.
That's awesome. What do you predict your final number might be?
Probably around 500,000, I guess. I mean, it's kind of hard to say. So, like, we actually did, or I did, I should say, a lot of analytics on this, and I got a hold of a lot of data curves on previous Kickstarters. And so, as we all know, like the most amount of pledges usually happen on the first day and the last day, right?
Yeah, people freak out at the end.
Right. And this week we've had a steady incline this week. A lot of new backers, a lot of new money coming in. And that's not unrealistic, but I have no idea what the last 48 hours is going to hold. I really don't, because we're a little bit different. Like we have stretch goals, but we don't really have new things for people to buy, right? And so like that last day, a lot of those stretch goals, like, oh, I got to add that because that just got unlocked. And then 2 hours later, you're like, oh, I got to go back because that just got unlocked on the last day. So we don't have that effect. I do think there'll be a bump on the last day. I don't know how much. So I'm predicting it'll be about $500,000, which would put it as, for a new toy line, at one of the best Kickstarters, not the best, and certainly not close to some people's Kickstarters that they had after their first one or their second one. But for our first Kickstarter out the gate for a new toy company, it is, I don't know if it's the best, but it's right up there in the top 3.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah. So we're really happy. And when we compare it to like the number of figures that we have is a lot lower than compared to other Kickstarters that happened. And the number of backers we have has definitely exceeded our expectations. So we feel like we're getting on a really good footing out the gate. So
awesome, man. Yeah, congratulations. We just can't wait to see these in our hands come summer, at least for wave 1. So Rob, it's been awesome talking to you. Carlos, did you have any other questions? Anything else you might want to?
Well, dude, I'm as
I know
always,
we've been nailing them left and right with questions. So.
Dude, since day one, I've been a huge fan of the line. Huge fan of all the artists behind the line also. I just wish you the best as always. You can count on me all the time, supporting the line, putting my grain of sand there with my pictures, with my IG on my YouTube channel or so. Also, Toy Addict. And I just want you to close this interview by saying something to your fans and the people at Savage Crucible Facebook. And I just want to tell everybody on the toy community, check Savage Crucible because the line is amazing. That's it. So Rob, all you, my friend.
Well, all right, Carlos, I appreciate it. I'm glad you're feeling better, by the way. I'm glad that worked out. Didn't know. Yeah, I was like, oh my God, when I heard about that. It's like, just make sure he's okay. I don't care. We can do it whenever. But no, the support has been fantastic. I appreciate everybody that has supported us and the entire team. We're all really excited, and we're really, really excited about when you guys get these figures in hand. And we can't say enough nice things about everyone that supported us. It's been overwhelming and humbling at the same time. And we look forward to being able to bring more characters to life. And I just want everybody to know, every positive or negative thing that you say, any constructive feedback you give us, we do listen. We do talk about it. We may not always respond to it, but it does get our attention. And we make tweaks as we can and as we feel they're necessary. And so if you don't like something, let us know, and we'll adjust to that. And if you like something, let us know, because we'll keep pumping it out. And so until, I know some people want to see Wave 4, but guys, just give us a little bit. It's going to be a long summer of updates, so we can tease information, and check into the Savage Crucible YouTube channel, because we're planning on doing like one talk a month, bringing in at least two new people on the team every month to get them to talk about the line and things that they're working on. So there'll be plenty of information, and I really appreciate the support, guys.
Awesome, man.